Welcome to the Mind Your Movies podcast. I'm Ryan,
I'm Shane.
and today we're talking warfare.
Yeah, we are doing a little review of a new movie that just came out, Warfare. We're gonna talk about it with no spoilers for a little bit, and then we'll let you know when we're gonna get into spoilers toward the end. Um, but yeah, this is we're doing something a little different for this episode. We both just watched the movie in theaters together. We probably got out of the movie 30 minutes ago.
Mm.
We're shell shocked. We need a charger for our laptop.
God damn.
Things are going to shit. No, but yeah, we just got out of the movie and we're gonna try recording the podcast like right right off of our first reaction, sort of. So yeah, this movie is a fucking experience. It's co-directed by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza, who is also a character in the movie because this is completely based on true events happened in 2006 in Iraq. A Navy SEALs squadron. I don't know what the terminology is. As we'll find out. Neither of us have been in the military. And yeah, so I don't know all the terminology, but yeah, they're basically they take a house, uh, take a position, and they're surrounded by combatants, yes, and yeah, it's a very realistic depiction of this hellish experience of like 24 hours for this these people. Yeah, it's an insane movie. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, it was definitely like I think we were both just like purely quiet at the end of that movie at first. Uh it's a it's a pretty tough movie, I think, to watch. Um I think we were both pretty surprised there was a kid in our theater. Maybe like a middle
Yeah.
schooler. like um
Yeah, maybe not a great movie to show a 12-year-old.
yeah. Uh yeah, I mean, I think this is a very tense and hard movie to watch. The A lot of the movie, like the sound design and the lighting and the colors, uh, help kind of understand the perspective of what's going on. There's times when like you don't hear stuff because, or you hear too much because like the radio is going and you hear people screaming and you hear uh
Gunfire or
gunfire.
explosions or what. Yeah, the sound design is really incredible.
Yeah, almost there was one specific moment when we're following kind of the radio guy and we're getting all that different all that different input from all different areas. And he has to unplug the thing and then it quiets down for us, right? We're hearing it through his ears kind of. And I can totally see why he had to unplug that stupid thing because I was like ready to stand up and it's shout at the theater to stop.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming. The sound design is like intentionally very loud and very chaotic. Like the the just the gun fire when the SEALs, I mean, you're with the SEALs the whole movie. You're never with the combatants, but the perspective does change from one SEAL to another in certain like instances. Um, but yeah, like when they're firing those weapons, it's just so loud and but yeah, it's really well done. It's just like an incredibly well-made movie, but maybe a movie that I would struggle to recommend to people without like a lot of caveats of like how harrowing the experience is. But I do think it's valuable. I mean, like we said we saw a 12-year-old kid in the theater. I think if there was maybe a 15 or 16-year-old kid who was interested in military, this would be like very valuable to show them as just like an insanely realistic and fucked up depiction of what happens in wars. Um, and obviously, I think this movie, at least we have our own ways of looking at it, but it's probably a bit of a Rorschach test for different people and their you know, people who have been in the military, people who have different perspectives on war and politics and all those kind of things. Um, where, but either way, I think the movie's valuable in that it's such a realistic and accurate depiction of things that people can look at it, you know, hopefully honestly. But yeah,
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the sound design too, it at a lot of times reminded me of Alex Garland's most other recent movie, Civil War,
oh yeah,
when every shot like felt impactful, right? And it almost like shook the room, right?
yeah, and I believe Ray Mendoza helped him on that sort of toward the end of Civil War, there's that big sort of invasion battle sequence, and I think Ray Mendoza helped choreograph that and stuff. So maybe that's where they worked together for the first time, and then they decided to co-direct this. But yeah, it's very impressive filmmaking for sure.
Yeah. One thing, so this movie, the premise is that the SEALs are there to support a marine operation or something. And again, we never really leave the SEALs perspective. We never see what's going on with the Marines. We never really see what's going on back at like the headquarters, who they're talking to, really, right?
Mhm.
We really just get it, and it's really strictly from one group of SEALs, right? Because they split up, and they're at different buildings essentially,
Yeah.
and we're really following just one group until later on in the movie. And that gives like such an kind of, like, at the beginning of the movie, I'm really feeling a lot of, you can kind of see the inexperience in some of the soldiers, right? And you can definitely tell who has more experience than others,
Yeah.
right? And kudos to the actors for being
Oh
able to
yeah.
portray that so well. um and I think that was just another thing where like there was so much attention to detail in this movie, with like how they moved, how they talked, everything. That is, again, almost overwhelming.
Oh yeah, it is. It's and like just the details of people like dissociating in these moments and like when shit hits the fan, the way that people like don't know what to do or I mean I'm sure they've been trained and all that, but yeah, you're really in the shit with them and it's like very harrowing. But yeah, we never see like the generals or anything like that. We do see some overhead like drone footage, I guess. It's like looks like thermal vision, so you can see people moving, and that does help orient us once in a while in the movie just to sort of like what's going on around them, which I think was pretty smart. But like you never see whoever's on the radio that they're talking to, like you said, or anything like that. So yeah, it feels so. It just feels so realistic. I mean, and it makes sense that Ray Mendoza was literally there. I mean, he's in the movie, his character, um, and played by DeFaro. I forget exactly what's his last name. DeFaro Wunatai. Yeah, he's really really good as Ray Mendoza.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all of the actors really, I think, did really well, especially considering some of them are like pretty well known. And I was kind of worried about that going in. There's I forget his name.
Will
Yeah,
Will Poulter.
Will Poulter,
Yeah.
who is like in We're the Millers, and there's a bunch of memes where like he's kind of a goofy kid in a lot of movies.
Yes.
And I was kind of worried about that going in. I was like, oh man. But
It's interesting
yeah,
seeing this. We both had seen Death of a Unicorn pretty recently, and he plays a much more goofy character in that. And so seeing him in this so quickly after did kind of throw me off for a second, but that's not really the movie's fault. That's just kind of just a viewing thing. But yeah, I think they're all very good and very believable in these characters, and they never like say how they're feeling or explain. There's no big monologue. It's not like Saving Private Ryan or whatever, where there's these emotional, sentimental scenes or anything like that. But you can tell just from the filmmaking and the acting that when how characters are feeling, and they do allow us to like feel that if you're like a an active audience member and you're paying attention and trying to you can see when characters are feeling different types of emotions without them having to literally explain it. So I think that was very well done.
yeah, I agree. And um I think in part two, it reminds me, or it contrasts with that movie Zero Dark 30, in terms of like never seeing what's going on the like other side of things, because Zero Dark 30 is almost more centered around the people making the decisions,
Yeah.
kind of above, right?
Mhm.
And I think back, because that's also a group of Navy SEALs, different operation, but and this one, it feels so much more like harrowing, right? Because our perspective is not the clean perspective in suits making decisions, right?
Yeah.
It's this gruesome tale of what people right there are going through.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely it makes everything, it emphasizes how this war was so pointless, and the audience not we never know really what they're doing. Like we just know that they're supporting an operation from text at the beginning of the movie, but there's no like MacGuffin that's like, oh, we got to get we gotta get the stop the bomb. We gotta like typical corny movie shit. Like it's very just they are invading a country that is not theirs, and then there are combatants, and they are trying to kill them.
Yeah.
That's the whole movie, and but that's also like what the war is to a certain degree. Like you train these people, and they're kids. They're probably all 18 to 25 max, right? Like they all seem pretty young. Even
Yeah.
the people who are in charge, they still look young.
Yeah.
Like there's no 40-year-old grizzled veteran in the group. So you basically take a bunch of kids, you brainwash them and train them to do certain things, and you throw them in a fucking war zone, and it's crazy. It's completely crazy. Um, so yeah, I did see a lot of people like before this movie came out, a lot of people online sort of concerned that it was going to be propaganda or just like pro-military whatever, and I definitely do not think it's that, but I also do think it is like people who are super pro-military like still don't won't admit the Iraq war was a huge mistake, stuff like that. I think they'll still watch this and they'll interpret it their own way and still see the SEALs as heroic and all that type of stuff. But I think when I watch it, I certainly see the pointlessness of it all and the horror of it all and how all this could be avoided. That there's actually no reason for any of these people to be here, aside from like BlackRock and the military industrial complex making a bunch of money and all that shit. Um, so yeah, definitely. But that's me bringing my own perspective into
Right.
it. The movie doesn't comment and say, "Oh man, I fucking wish Dick Cheney didn't send us here." You know what I mean? That's just me interpreting from my own perspective. So I think, but I think the movie is so realistic and well done that I don't fault the movie for not saying, "Oh, the Iraq War was bad." Like, I don't think they need to do that at all.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway.
No, I mean it's like you said with the Rorschach test, right? Like this
Yeah.
feels like a Rorschach test on how do you feel about this war, right? Like if you could go into this and come out of it with a very different perspective based on what your perspective is going in, right? This
Yeah.
movie has no, or I don't know, maybe it does, but it kind of feels like it has no true agenda, right? Its agenda is to tell the story of what happened,
Yeah.
and that leaves it totally up to interpretation.
Yeah.
Um, I think also I also lean on the side that like it does seem like it maybe is making a commentary a little bit, but also again, I admit that's probably just my bias going in,
Yeah,
right?
and there are moments where you see horrific. So you're with this team the whole time. So they're our protagonists, and you see horrific things happen to them, and you never see the enemy perspective. So when there are battles and all that, there are moments of you. At least I felt at least maybe one or two moments of feeling like fucking get them, like
Mm,
kill those people who are trying to shoot at you. Like you are rooting for them, and there is a heroism to what the soldiers are doing in a way of like supporting their trying to save uh, their other comrades, whatever. So I could definitely see people, it is definitely portraying them in a somewhat positive light, but it didn't seem like whitewashing
yeah,
anything to me. Like they're not they are human beings, and they don't know what to do. They're frazzled. Some of them are kind of assholes, or they're you know whatever. We're
yeah,
not going to get into things further in the movie, but yeah, like it. But I could see someone also just looking at them this as like, look at how heroic the soldiers are,
yeah,
and that is an aspect of it where certainly the movie is not necessarily anti-American soldier, but I do think the way I'm looking at it, it does seem pretty anti-war of just showing like how horrific this all is.
yeah. And I think I agree, and I wonder like maybe that is maybe there is something there of like the the heroism that it does seem like it might be showing, right? Isn't about you know isn't necessarily pro America, but it's pro the people that were there doing their job, doing it well and fighting for each other and stuff, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Um still, yeah, right? Like I don't know. There's I think that yeah, it's definitely one that you can interpret or that you'll just bring your own interpretation kind of into and leave probably with the same interpretation.
Yeah, I don't think this movie. Well, Yeah, I don't know that this movie's gonna like change people's minds necessarily, but I do think I could have, like I said earlier about that, like 15-year-old, 16-year-old. So
Oh yeah.
I wanted to say this because I think this is an interesting story, and it kind of it does relate to this. When I was maybe around that age, 16, 17, I was just getting into movies. I was watching some Stanley Kubrick movies, and I watched Full Metal Jacket. And Full Metal Jacket came out in 87. My dad was born in 71, so he would have been 16 years old when it came out. And I watched it, and he said that one of his friends in high school saw Full Metal Jacket and it made him want to go and join the military. And that blew my mind. It blew my mind because I watched the movie and I'm like, this looks like hell.
Yeah.
This, like, boot camp looks like hell. The war that it shows is like, it shows the Vietnam War is just like hell. Like, I would never ever want to do that after watching that movie. So to have that, to hear that as a young kid, I was like, it kind of, yeah, like it blew my mind that someone could have such an opposite interpretation of the movie. But like, that just goes to show with this movie as well that I do think people will look at it however they want to look at it, and the movie can't control that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think that that makes, oh, if Full Metal Jacket is pro war or anything like that, because I don't think it is at all. But if someone has that mindset and they watch that movie and they're like, oh, it's funny that this the Jones director is funny, or like they like the camaraderie of it or whatever, like people are gonna interpret it however they want, and you can't really control that, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do think like one thing that this might change your perspective on is just the realism, right?
Yeah,
And the what actually what it's like there, right? And
yeah.
then that can be a positive, right? If you want to be in the military, right? And you want that heroism and you want um that camaraderie and everything, right? Like these people work hard to keep each other alive and everything, right? But also, and we'll talk more about this when we get into the spoiler part, but like you see some terrible stuff and this movie makes sure that you feel it,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Uh,
100%. It's absolutely horrific and does not shy away from showing how awful uh, things really get in these type of situations. But yeah, I could also see someone, you know, like we said, the heroism, the camaraderie of it all that could appeal to some people. Um, but also, like, I don't think I fault the movie for that at all. Like that
right.
is the real experience of it all, you know, especially with the one of the directors being in the experience. That is something that I think a lot of people in the military probably like rely on, is that camaraderie and like whatever brotherhood, whatever, uh, just in order to get through all these situations, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I actually wanted to be in the military when I was a kid. Because my dad was in the military. My grandfathers were both in the military. My one of my uncles was in the military. My oldest brother ends up going into the military when I was still fairly kiddish, right? And so I had a goal at one point to go into the military, right? I'm glad that didn't happen in retrospect, but you know, I mean, that was my perspective at the time, and I remember watching war movies and being like kind of inspired by them, right? And I think this movie feels a lot different than those, right? And maybe that part of that is my perspective now than it was at the time, but also I'm sure part of that is like this movie just it feels so much more real, right? And the it's so much more like visceral and hard to watch, right? And again with like the sound design and just everything about this movie really makes you like kind not that you really understand it, right? But like I feel like I do have a better understanding of like what my brother and my dad and my grandfathers went through when they were in dangerous situations in the military, right? And I feel like that's also a good thing about this movie is that it shows, and I'm sure that's a huge part of the point of this movie, with it being made by a veteran that was in this, is for people to actually understand a little bit more about like regardless of how you feel about war, what these people went through.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's super, yeah, definitely a super valuable movie that's like worth watching and will show, yeah, it shows you things that can inform your perspective of just, I mean, there's really no other way. I mean, aside from this movie, like a documentary or a book, nothing else then nothing aside from a movie I feel like can really put you in moment like this and have you like really feel like maybe this is the closest to seeing what that experience was like. So I think that is very valuable for people to watch it. But like if I was telling someone to watch it, I'd be like, "Hey, listen, this is like fucking harrowing. It's like it's very difficult to watch. I mean, if I don't know if I would recommend it to someone who's a veteran, like or
Oh
someone
yeah.
like in a way, it's like maybe they would appreciate the realism of it and all that. But I could absolutely see like it would probably set people off with like PTSD or anything like that. So it's very yeah, it's kind of tricky. It's also tricky like me kind of not being in the military or having that experience. It's hard. I don't feel like I'm necessarily a super qualified voice on like on the movie necessarily, but yeah, just from my perspective, I really I appreciated seeing it. I'm glad that I've seen the movie, and it sort of is eye opening in a way, even if it didn't. I don't know that it changed my mind in any way, but I think it is just valuable to have seen.
I totally agree, and I think just in like terms of that realism too, like at the very very end of the movie, after before the credits, I think, but whatever.
Yeah,
We see some clips of both pictures of the real people, but also we see some clips of the actors training with like real military techniques and tactics. And in the movie, it really comes off with that realism
yeah,
in their movements and the way they move their guns. You can even hear when you're at one point we're like following a sniper, right, fairly early in the movie, and he you hear the safety
yeah,
click once in a while when he's like ready to do something and then decides not to or something. And it's just like those tiny little details of realism. Like you're not gonna have the gun not on safety for the entire time, right? You're gonna have it safety most of the time, and those little tiny details make a huge difference, including also just the way they talk. Like I can't imagine what these actors went through. They like probably they went through like a real boot camp or something to learn the jargon, to learn the movements, the discipline that
yeah.
these soldiers really had, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the movie definitely it, just all the dialogue also is and the little mannerisms like of a guy I gotta take a piss and he pees in a bottle or like them like kind of like joking with each other a little bit in like a down moment like the type of little details that make it feel so realistic and obviously all knowing that it's directed by Ray Mendoza like you know how it's probably extremely accurate to what happened, but those little details of things that you would normally never see in a movie, that all like adds up to making it feel so authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think that do we want to jump into spoilers pretty soon here?
Sure. Yeah. I think we've said what we wanted to say about as far as without going into spoilers.
Yeah, I guess just before spoilers, maybe I guess you've already kind of said like it's hard to recommend it right away without a bunch of caveats, and hopefully what we've talked about tells you those caveats.
Yeah.
But I do think like I'm glad that I watched it, but I do agree that it's a hard one to recommend necessarily.
Right.
I think if you haven't seen it, I think it's probably going to be more impactful in theaters. It did feel nice to see it on the big screen. The sound design, the visuals really benefit from that, I think. But yeah, I mean, don't go on a date to this movie, and
No. No.
don't bring a kid. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's valuable if you're up for that. But it's probably the hardest movie going experience I've been to in a theater.
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart, or if you just want a nice, light, fun movie, go see with friends or something like that. This is certainly not that. But but yeah, I agree. I think it was a pretty crazy experience, and that sort of is the power of movies in some way of letting you step into someone else's shoes for a couple of hours, and this is like kind of an extreme version of that of being able to maybe expand your perspective a little bit and see what it's like to walk in these guys' boots, I guess, uh for whatever an hour and a half, without actually having to do it. Uh, yeah, so I think it is valuable for people to see, especially people who haven't been in the military. Like, so I'm glad that I've seen it. Uh, but yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about Warfare without getting into spoilers.
Do we want to give our ratings now, or do should we give them at the end when people come back and
I'm
get
not
to
even
see
sure exactly what I'm gonna
it?
rate it, so maybe we just give it
That's a
at
hard
the
one.
end.
All right, cool.
If you want to stop listening and avoid
Yeah,
spoilers, you can go to our letterboxd and we'll have our ratings there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they might even our ratings might change in the next like day or so because this is like raw. Again, we are like right out of the theater.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Hopefully, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Maybe whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you enjoy it if you go, or I don't know. That's hard to say.
Hopefully hopefully it's a valuable experience, maybe say.
Hopefully, you enjoy the filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
Like the sound design, all this stuff is really powerful and does a great job.
Yeah. So yeah,
We'll
that's
we'll
this
see you when you're done with the movie.
yeah, get if you haven't seen the movie, get the hell out of here. Go stop listening. All right. I think that's a fair spoiler warning. Now we're officially in the spoiler section of the podcast. Is there anything you wanted to say in particular?
I mean, I think just the first thing is in terms of like the the visceralness of this movie is I'm just gonna jump right in and say you watch some people's legs get blown off.
Oh my god. Yeah, you see a guy get blown in half.
Yeah,
You see his insides.
yeah, and from the perspective of
Jesus.
someone that like kind of just woke up and
Yeah.
is like looking around after an explosion, sees the person like blown in half and is like and then realizes they're also hurt and is like screaming and shouting and
It's one of the most horrifying sequences maybe I've ever seen in a movie.
yeah.
Like, uh, like I've said this earlier when we were walking out of the movie, but like, there's a guy like so there's this big explosion. They're trying to. Are they just trying to evacuate or?
Yeah, well, I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Why they're trying to
Should we
but
just start at the beginning
yeah,
of the
sure.
movie a little bit before we get into? Or
Yeah, maybe.
do we do
Yeah. So,
do we want to talk about the music video that they watched at the beginning?
yeah, so
Maybe lighten it up a little bit.
yeah.
That that part was fun. That just to
Yeah.
structure it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just had to get the legs thing out of my head, but yeah,
Yeah, the
we
oh my god, that
we
was
should
horrific.
backtrack.
Yeah, but yes, the movie starts in an unexpected way. The movie starts with a music video for a song which I was not familiar with, but we looked it up afterwards. It's by someone named Eric Prides, and it's called "Call on Me," and the music video was apparently uh, controversial because it was provocative. It's sort of a riff on like '80s dance or not dance like workout videos, but in a very provocative way, I guess. And all of the soldiers are watching it and they're kind of just having fun and goofing around while watching this video, which makes sense. They've probably been just like stuck surrounded by dudes for months and years or something, so they're like, oh my god, this woman in the leotard is going crazy. But yeah, the music is like it's just not how I would have expected this movie to start, but it's really like maybe a minute, and then boom, we're in the moment, and you don't learn anyone's backstory. There's no that's the only like sort of bonding moment, and you can see, I could tell just because I knew that the movie was gonna get harrowing, that there is like a bittersweetness to it where the guys are like having a good time, but you can see certain they focus on certain characters and they are sort of like you can almost see that they're thinking in their head like, oh man, like they're not having as good of a time. It's not totally lighthearted. Like there is the specter of war over them. You know what I mean, over their heads. Um, so I thought that was just kind of an interesting way to start the movie.
Yeah, definitely. It's also maybe the only music in the movie.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any non-diegetic music, which is a very good choice. Again, feels so immersive.
Yeah. And it's a funny and kind of goofy way to start. You're right, like you do kind of see those the some of the people having different like emotional reactions to about to be going into war, but it is also a really funny like kind of lighthearted moment. Like I was very taken off guard. I think it's also like right after it says like on the screen it says the thing about where we are, right? Like it says in 2006 these are the SEALs or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Defending the supporting the marine operation or something. And so like right from there it jumps right into a funny, like, old fashioned and kind of sexual
Yeah.
music video, and then we're plopped right into them on the streets. I think right, they're starting on the streets with
Yeah,
it.
at night.
Yeah,
It's night and they're going through the streets and still there's like a moment there where they like kind of joke around, like a guy pretends he's like humping the air with his gun kind of a thing, which those are like those little moments of humor and humanity kind of like you could tell that was probably these type of guys, their type of humor. Um but yeah, they find a house and they say I think they say I like this house and we're going to take it,
yeah,
and they break into someone's house in the middle of the night and they basically just take the house and
yeah,
they tell them like, hey, don't worry, we're not going to kill you, but stay in this room and don't move for at all, and we have guns, and if you try to run we probably will kill you.
yeah,
They don't say that, but that's kind of the implication when a bunch of guys with guns break into your house. You're kind of like, well, I guess I just have to, I'm stuck in this room. And it turns out there's a second floor and the staircase is walled off and it's two apartments, so they break down the wall, and then they take that, and also that is a very kind of harrowing moment of that family being really terrified by what they don't know what's going on, if they're going to be killed, if all that. So that is very scary for the family. But then also this moment, that thing with the wall, I think that is what sets off their location, so people know that they're there, and then the next day that's when you know shit hits the fan. But it's a very interesting sort of opening scene. I don't know.
yeah. And they're trying to set up a sniper position. I assume this is the sniper to support the marine operation that we don't really know where it is or much about it, but and so once they get into that top floor, they do actually set up that sniper position, and the sniper starts to notice uh what's going on. Like people are noticing them. They're taking count of like how many times people look over in their direction,
Yep.
and they have a difference between peeping their direction and probing their direction.
Yep.
All sorts of, again, like just military jargon, I'm sure, that makes a lot of sense,
Yep.
that you want to know if someone's kind of glancing or maybe investigating, right? But
Yeah.
um and we slowly start to see them, like, more people building up in that area that they're kind of watching, and eventually someone comes in with guns, right? And
Yeah.
they see someone carrying a gun in there.
Yeah.
And this is actually when we get that safety. It's
Yeah.
what is
Well,
it?
the main sniper guy is Elliot, and he leaves to stretch and maybe like have a drink of water or something
Mm,
like that. So the other guy takes over, and he's watching these guys exit a car, and yeah, he sees a guy and he can't see what he has, and then right as he's going into a building, he sees a weapon. So he calls it out and he tries to take off the safety, but he can't shoot him in time.
yeah, and it's kind of a funny moment when the kind of the other guys say weak when he says
Yeah,
what happened, and it's like, damn, like,
should have killed that guy.
yeah.
There's, yeah, you, yeah,
Um, but so this is kind of the setup.
yeah.
Clearly,
This,
people are realizing that the U.S. military's in this house.
yeah, and this is like the calm before the storm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then the storm happens.
yeah.
A
Well,
grenade gets. Am I missing something?
no, I just wanted to say
Yeah,
before we get into the real shit, that is also when we're like introduced to Ray Mendoza,
yeah,
and he's kind of the main character, not real. There really is no main character. It's just the situation and whoever we're following. But he is sort of, I don't know. Again, I'm not in the military. I don't know the terminology, but he is sort of using the radio and calling out their position, and he seems to be the radio guy. I don't know what the terminology would be for that. Um, but yeah, that's when we're kind of introduced to him, and yeah, we also get a lot of like moments of people. We learn there's a guy who's like kind of new. He like tries to ask Ray like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he's like, "I'm fine." And then Will Poulter's like, "Oh, he's got new guy energy," you know.
yeah,
But there are those moments again, the humanness of it, and they're kind of just waiting. So they're kind of like they're just waiting. Um,
yeah. And it's so, like, unsure what they're waiting for,
yeah,
right? Like it feels like they're just waiting for the enemies to attack, the combatants to attack them, right? That's what it kind of feels like, because they're watching them. They know that they're kind of, they think that they might know that they're there. So it almost feels more like less like they're trying to help a marine operation, and more like they're just already trapped.
Yeah, they absolutely feel trapped and surrounded very quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like you can't leave during the day, I guess, right? I mean,
I mean,
I
no,
guess.
I'm
Also,
no.
at this point, so the two sealed, so there's also two teams that had split up, right? So the main team that we follow is in this house, and the other team went somewhere else,
Mhm.
and they're in contact on the radio, but we don't see them until really close to the end of the movie.
Yeah, I
Um,
think technically it's like three teams maybe,
oh,
because
okay.
those two
Oh yeah,
other
you're right.
teams join together and then they join our team
Yeah,
at the end. But whatever, it doesn't.
yeah, and we see that like over the that video that you were talking about,
Overhead.
the infrared overhead thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and but so and then a grenade comes in through the sniper hole,
yeah,
and that's when shit really hits the fan.
yeah.
They have to evacuate that room. They're like really worried about getting their stuff out of that room, which I wasn't too exactly sure, frankly, like why they cared.
Well, I think they don't want to leave. I mean, the guy said he had C4. They don't want that to go off.
Uh,
They don't want to leave things behind that the enemy can take, and now
yeah,
they have more
mm,
supplies and stuff. So I
that
think
makes sense.
that's a big part of the reason. But yeah, they're also like someone shooting through the window, so they don't want to go back in that room.
Yeah, it's
But
like a
yeah,
hot zone. It
yeah,
is that room from that point on. Every time that they talk about that room or that it's like seen, it has this red curtain up, and so that room even looks red after that point, and
yeah,
it's smoky right away because of the grenade. And every time there's just this air of that's a bad place. In even when the other teams get there, they're a little more willing to like go upstairs and go into there, but like pretty much until then, our main team like they get downstairs pretty much as quick as they can, and they stay the fuck out of upstairs. It's like
yeah,
it's the hot zone. You don't want to be there, I guess, right?
yeah. Right. So
Oof.
then after this, that's when Elliot and one other guy were injured, or they're sort of shell shocked. Elliot is definitely injured. Maybe he has shrapnel or something in his
Yeah,
arm or his side. And the other guys sort of shook up and they're calling for an evacuation for them. So they want to bring a tank in to evacuate them. And they're waiting. They're calling on the radio, trying to get them in. Um, and yeah, then they try to go to the tank. They send out they have two, I guess, Iraqi military, like the Iraqi government military people, who are helping, and they send them out first, and then they follow. And I guess an IED goes off, but this is like, which also goes to the perspective, the aspect of the aspect of the movie where you're only in the perspective of these seals, where this IED goes off without any warning. You have no idea that it's going to happen, and it was shocking, and you don't know what happened. Like,
yeah,
it's just a giant explosion, and then yeah, like you say, you can't hear anything. People are blown in half, their legs are mangled,
you
and
can't tell who's dead or alive at
yes,
first. I mean, oof,
I mean, there's a long period where I thought Elliot was
me too.
dead,
Oh yeah,
dead for sure. I thought they were just bringing him in because they didn't know what to do and they
yeah,
just brought him in. But turns out he ends up to be alive. We're in the spoiler section, so it's
yeah.
fine. But yeah, I mean, and this is the sequence with the screaming.
Oh
I think I mentioned that earlier, but that was one of the most harrowing sequences of, you're with one of the guys who gets injured, and he's like screaming and screaming, and the audio is sort of muffled because it's sort of from his perspective, or from the perspective of like being, your ears are muffled from the bomb, from the explosion, and and then they drag him in, and then the audio quickly cuts to normal audio again for the people who are in back in the house, and his screaming is just in like he's screaming at the top of his lungs. It's really like hard to watch.
yeah,
It's really really bad. Like, that was just a harrowing. Just talking about it, I'm like getting chills. I'm
yeah,
like, holy shit, that was fucked up. Like, just seeing that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I have anything to say about it. Just that how fucked up that was.
yeah.
But
Well,
it was really well done to make it feel so fucked up. Very good filmmaking. But just watching it, I'm like, holy shit.
yeah. I'm getting chills really just thinking about it too,
Yeah,
and it's. I mean, Ray is going out to try to get um the Elliot, right?
yeah,
Elliot, who I
yeah. Oh
it,
my god.
and so all this,
Ugh.
I mean, all this is happening, right? And Ray has kind of that uh
Muffled hearing.
muffled hearing also, and kind of disoriented. And you can tell that like he hears a gunshot through the muffled hearing, and he just kind of shoots in a few places. He has no idea.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he really has any idea where to shoot,
Hmm.
right? But he stumbles out there and pulls. I mean, Elliot is big guy,
Yeah.
and he tries to pull him by the chest thing. He thinks, I assume he thinks Elliot is dead, and he's trying to pull him in. Um, and it is taking him a lot, and you can hear him even over the muffle. You can hear him yelling, like, not even yelling to get anyone's attention or anything, just like when you're pulling something real heavy, right?
Yeah.
Like just grunting, I guess.
Yeah.
And also um when the other guy's getting pulled in, who had one of his legs blown up, um when we have that muffled hearing, we like he's like screaming so loud he can hear himself over the muffled, right? Which I'm sure is like, if you can't hear yourself, you're gonna yell louder, right? And
Mm, yeah.
that's when, like, once we get to that inside perspective again, it's like everything was building up. He's been trying to his muffled hearing, he can't hear anything, so he's just yelling super loud, and
Yeah.
then everyone inside is confused, and oh man, it is.
And sorry, what were you gonna
Yeah,
say?
no, it is just it's so hard to. That was a hard scene to
Oh
watch.
yeah, you literally talking about it now. I'm like,
Yeah,
holy shit! Like this is interesting to record this podcast so
yeah,
quickly after this movie in particular. It's
yeah,
uh so shocking and but yeah, when they're pulling Elliot in, he's pulling him in, and there's a wall in front of the door, and he's pulling him around the wall, and you see his foot like it's hanging on by a thread, and it gets stuck around the corner, and it's like, oh my
yeah.
god, the
His
details of the gore and everything in this movie are like horrific.
yeah,
Really, really just fucked up. Oh my god.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's Ray, so like that is probably burned into his mind of seeing that and trying to pull him in and all that. Like just horrible.
yeah. And meanwhile, like, people inside are just there's a couple of people that are just shocked, like, not moving, unable to, like, they're not giving backup, they're not giving help pulling people in, they're just stunned,
Yeah,
right? And that's kind of how I felt watching that part. Like, you know, oh man,
yeah,
oh, it is such a tough scene to watch. And then as they get him in, as they get uh not Elliot, the other guy in,
yeah.
they're trying to, like, take care of his leg and get him to stop.
Oh my
And
god.
it is a very, I mean, it's very graphic.
Yeah,
Um and there's one part when they decide they have to do a tourniquet, right? And that's like the very first thing you learn in any, like, first aid training is that tourniquets are very last resort, and the person's probably losing a limb. And just hearing that someone's gonna have to put on a tourniquet in something that feels this real, right? Like in an action movie or whatever, like, people are gonna pull their belt around and pretend to make a
yeah. That's
tournament.
stupid. Yeah, it's like
But
a Sylvester Stallone like stupid
yeah, exactly.
badass thing.
And he's still walking on the leg somehow,
Yeah,
right? But like in this, when I heard that when I heard him saying he's gonna make the tourniquet, I was like, oh, like, like, oh, the consequences of that in a real situation, and it feels so much different than, like, any other movie when someone's injured.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, definitely. It's like it's really awful to watch. Yeah, so this is definitely the most like harrowing sequence in the movie, and uh, yeah, pretty awful to watch. I don't know. I don't know if I have that much else to say. I have some,
yeah.
but yeah,
Well, I think so. One other thing that's happening here is, um, along with the whole perspective thing, right? Like, the room is also like they're having to shoot outwards, and there's gunshots coming in, so the room gets a little foggier. The red curtains make it a little more red. The blood on the ground, like, it starts to feel like, one, they are cornered, right? They're trapped in this room. They just tried to get evac by a tank and it didn't work. So, like, I'm sure they feel cornered, and I think the movie it does a really good job at making you feel that too, with the way the lighting changes here to being a little more red, a little less clear with the fog and everything, um, and with just the audio being so confusing. It feels like it gets exponentially more confusing in this moment, and kind of carrying on after this, where there's lots of shouting, there's lots of radio stuff, and it's never really clear exactly what's happening, and they're talking all the jargon, and everyone's just pretty fucked up at this point.
yeah. It's Yeah, it's crazy. And later on in the movie, once the support team shows up, there is a moment where the one of the guys asks one of the new guys asks one of our original guys, like, what happened? Was it an IED? And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, he
Yeah.
asks him again, I think, and he says, I don't fucking know. Like I have no idea what happened. It
Yeah.
was just a fucking explosion, and I'm like, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I yeah, I think he's in a state of shock. That's probably, which makes sense, that how you'd react in that type of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And so once the other team finally gets there, and at points they say like, you know, ETA like 3 minutes in this movie at times, and ETA 6 minutes and stuff, right? For the first evac, and then for the second team to get there,
yeah,
and then all sorts of stuff. And the movie feels like it is giving you that time. Like I don't like we weren't watching this in a way that we could like check timestamps or anything, obviously.
right.
But like, if I had to guess, that was pretty. Like when they said 3 minutes, it was probably pretty close to 3 minutes.
Mm.
At least it felt like that, and maybe that's just because it was so good at being tense, and there was like some uncertainty on like, is this? Are they actually going to get there? Is this going to be like what's going to happen?
Yeah,
Right. Um, but once the second team finally gets there, the room feels a little brighter, right? There's more people, there's support. Um there's I guess you see less of the blood just because there's more people around.
yeah,
And the room kind of seems like it looks clearer, it looks less red. And I feel like that's another way of showing the perspective. Like the overall perspective in the room now is less worrisome, right?
yeah. I think when that second team is coming, that is the most maybe heroic element of the movie, where you've seen all this horrible shit happen to your protagonists, and now these are the people who are kind of getting revenge, trying to get revenge in a way. Like when they're shooting at them, that was when I felt like I did have that feeling of like, fucking get them.
Yeah.
Like you want that, well, basically vengeance. Like that is kind of what it comes down to, I guess. But but yeah, when they're coming in, but also they're kind of oblivious in some moments. Like there are moments when they like are walking by and they kick one of the guy's legs, and the legs are like barely hanging on, and the guy's screaming. And there are also moments where they seem so very callous.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's their way of coping with things. They just are unaware of how shell shocked and traumatized everyone is. Um, but yeah, that second team coming is a pretty interesting sequence of the movie, and I think that is the moment that's most uh, so yeah, heroic. I keep saying it over and over
Yeah.
again. That isn't, that's when you're watching it, would maybe have people feel like, oh man, that's cool, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
It almost feels like the second team really doesn't fully understand what happened,
Yeah.
because they don't. And I think maybe that's saying something about, one, maybe we're still kind of seeing it from the perspective of the first team.
Hmm.
Even if things are happening this way, it kind of seems worse because we're seeing it from that perspective.
Hmm.
But also, like, maybe this is just a commentary on, even for the other like not every soldier there could understand what happened to a group that got attacked like this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and like that survivorship isn't necessarily like evenly distributed. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they don't, they weren't there with like dragging him through and all the
right.
screaming, and they just get there and there's a bunch of blood and their guys with their legs are all fucked up, and they didn't experience it either.
And at this point, also the guys. So Elliot had woken up, which was, oh man, they're like they're putting the tourniquet on the other guy, and that's when like Elliot kind of half shoots up and is like screaming.
Yeah.
Um, and is
And
asking for morphine.
yeah,
They're able to get morphine. And so at
yeah,
this point, when the second team gets there, they already have morphine. I mean, I'm
right.
sure they're still in a lot of pain, but
Yeah,
like,
definitely. And then yeah, the morphine too. One of the guys tries to stab the morphine, and he does it upside down, and he stabs himself in the thumb.
yeah.
Um,
And you can tell for the rest of
and
the movie that he's a little high.
is he? Yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't really.
there's like a time when he gets stuck on the door, and it seems like it's like a.
Oh,
And then there's another time he like trips when they're coming back in,
yes, I remember. Oh,
and
okay.
even the way he's
Yeah.
talking kind of just feels like he's like stumbling on his words a little bit.
See, I didn't even put that together because they really don't.
Yeah,
Things just happen and you have to put it together on your own. That makes sense. That
yeah,
I was kind of just thinking like shit happens. Like something you're trying to do things and you trip and fall, but that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense that it was the morphine. Yeah,
yeah. And then so when the second team gets there too, our kind of the leader of the first team that we were following, he's like in the room with I
the
mean,
family.
yeah, hostages, family,
Yeah,
whatever you call them. And the other leader, one of the other leaders comes in and he's like, "Man, I'm fucked up. I need you to take the lead. Like
yeah,
I can't I can't do anything."
yeah,
Right? And that's like kind of a moment of like for a lot of the movie, of course, he's like he's kind of a stern like on the on top of things guy, right?
yeah,
He's leading the first group.
yeah,
And now we're seeing him like totally crumbling,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and maybe part of the thing of casting Will Poulter is that I think he's very good at being that stern leader, and he knows what he's doing and all that. But then when shit hits the fan, he's also very good at playing that shocked, ultimately like a young guy. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, they don't tell us like their ages or anything, but like I said earlier, like they all seem very young, and to be whatever 20 something years old and in this situation, maybe he hasn't been in a firefight like this before. We don't really get any backstory for anyone. Um, but yeah, also with the morphine guy, I think there are moments where it can be hard to tell who is who,
Oh yeah.
definitely, because they're all
They're wearing the same uniform.
yeah,
They're yeah, some of them look alike. I mean,
yeah.
um but I mean I'm pretty sure that it was the morphine
Yeah,
guy that
no.
a few times, but yeah,
Now that
it
you say that, I
yeah.
remember that, but in the moment, I wasn't connecting those dots.
I mean also there's just so much going on in the movie
Yeah,
that it's like yeah, you're gonna miss some stuff.
yeah,
Like
and there's almost like it's also interesting too the firefights like
yeah.
in in the movie. There's so much more people randomly firing than maybe you would expect,
Yeah.
but there's so much like, all right, we're going out. Fucking just shoot in these directions, shoot at
Yeah.
some of the buildings. Like, we don't know where they are. You just gotta shoot. And also, the enemy combatants, they're just like putting their gun over a ledge and they're just firing randomly. And somehow, I believe, I don't know that anyone dies in this movie. Like, I know one of the enemy combatants, I guess they're Al Qaeda, is that
I don't
the
really I
implication?
mean
I don't know.
yeah, maybe.
Right? Probably.
We're
But yeah, one of the they literally call them bad guys in the
yeah.
movie. I assume that's what they would call them in real life too. But yeah, one of the bad guys gets shot at some point, but we don't really see
Yeah.
any of that.
I think I mean I think that's a good question. Like because we're only seeing it from their perspective from the SEAL's perspective. And if in this situation, right? If you shoot at some people and you stop seeing them, you don't know if they went back undercover, if they got hurt, if they got killed. You don't really know, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's part of the point too, right? Like eh, I don't know. Like it seemed to me like at times they probably got a few uh bad guys, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um but yeah, I mean, we really don't know. It's kind of similar to at the early in the movie, we have the two Iraqi military personnel that are like the translators. They're supporting the SEALs,
Mhm.
and one of them's the one that gets totally blown apart, and the other one we kind of see him standing up
Oh yeah.
and shooting a little bit, but then just kind of
Yeah.
running off. And like you never know if he's dead. You never know if he's alive, and you never know
Yeah,
what
he
happened.
kind of just like get runs away, I guess. I don't really remember what happened to him. Yeah, because that is
Yeah,
so chaotic and that.
yeah,
But yeah, that the one of the translators does get completely blown up, obviously. But I was just thinking from the firefights in
yeah.
particular, like no one gets
It doesn't
shot
seem
directly really. It's a lot of spraying into through windows and onto balconies and just yeah,
yeah,
it's less controlled than maybe other movies would make you think.
yeah.
If that-
Yeah, and it's much more of if you're shooting, they can't shoot you, right? Like
Yes,
they're not going to get out of their cover to shoot if they're being shot at,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Or if they even hear gunshots, right? So like, it's very much just who can shoot first and more,
yeah,
right? Less of who can hit the other person, maybe.
right.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the contrasts of like something like Call of Duty that can really like desensitize you, right?
Yeah,
Like in Call of Duty, well, do I
I
have to
was
wait, right? Like it's
I was literally just about to say the same thing of just how this movie does make you think about how, or made me think about how desensitizing and kind of nefarious, like Call of Duty and a lot of first person shooters are, of putting you in a quote unquote battlefield or a war zone, and when you die you respawn and you just keep playing and it's just a game. And this movie really is just the opposite of that. And I think anyone from watching the trailers, if they thought this was going to be that type of thing, this is certainly not that. This
Yeah.
is not. There's nothing lighthearted about the violence. There's nothing uh, fun really about. There's honestly nothing fun about the movie. The first 2 minutes are kind of a little fun, and they're also a little bittersweet because you know what's about to happen. And the rest of the movie is basically, at best, uncomfortable, and at worst, some of the most horrifying shit you'll ever see in a movie.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I mean, I honestly like hopefully in your life, like
Yeah. Well,
I hope you never see anything worse than this.
yeah, I mean, the only thing that say, I mean, yeah, but it is all real, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it's all, but
Right.
you know, it's a movie,
Right.
so there you have that one level of remove. But also, while you're watching it, you're like, holy shit, this was a real experience. These people all went through.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean that idea of like movies being an empathy machine, right? Like
Yeah,
this might be one of the like one of the best like models for that where it's made by someone that was actually there. But it's not like a documentary necessarily like it takes a much more like realistic approach and a much more immersive approach to it. And I, like I can't think of another movie that's made me feel so empathetic to the
mm,
situation.
yeah, yeah. True. I totally agree. I do think like it also shows how scary it is for the family when they take the house and like there's children in the house and they're being shot at and there's grenades and like this like they must be so traumatized. I do like the movie is doing its own thing. It's focusing on the soldiers and their perspective. I do kind of wonder if it would have been valuable to get more of that family's perspective, and maybe that's something else that I would have appreciated being in the movie a little more. But again, I also don't know necessarily what you could show. It's just them being terrified the whole time, and
Yeah.
that's kind of it. It's just like, oh wow, they were horrifically traumatized, and that's yeah. So I don't know exactly what I would be looking for, but I think that could be a valuable perspective in this situation. That is, they do show it. They do show that family a decent amount.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
Well, and I think between like that family and the translators, um, or the Iraqi military, they definitely show also the like in a way the carelessness of the SEALs in their
Yeah.
reaction or interactions with these people, right? Like they a sense like effectively just take the families hostage. They literally when they realize there's a wall, they just tear it down,
Yeah.
right? Like and again like with the Iraqi military people, they have them go first. They have them like guarding downstairs when they think upstairs is safe, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
They're very like not guinea pigs, but sort of sacrificial lambs. Like they send them into the most do the most dangerous thing first.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening with that is one of them gets blown up and the other one maybe survives.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, also you're running away into territory of like these people that are trying to kill you. So
Yeah.
who knows what happens, right? But so it's there's like this unsettlingness of like how these people are also being treated. They're not at all the enemy combatants, but they are being treated much less than they are treating each other, right? The SEALs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and there is the moment when I don't know exactly what, but I don't know how to talk about this, but the after the first people are evacuated, they tell the tanks to blow up the second
mm.
floor. I don't know exactly why, what the purpose of that was, but they kind of blow up a bunch of buildings around them, but also their own second floor, which is empty.
I
But
think they thought they're. I think from I think I might have misunderstood this, but I think they said they had like comms from the infrared guys that said, you know, get the people off your roof. There's people on the other rooftops, and so they realized there's enemies on their roof.
okay,
I think that was the idea. So then they were
okay,
like, we got to blow up our roof before we can run out there.
okay, I get you.
That's how I understood it. But
Right.
I mean, everything was
Not,
kind of chaotic. So
yeah, yeah,
who
very
knows?
chaotic. A lot to, and they really don't hold your hand with any of it. It's just the going. But yeah, so they do that, and when they do that, they sort of cover the family.
Yeah.
But then also, taken these people hostage, you've taken their home, you've blown up their home, they've completely traumatized them and their small children for the rest of their lives, all for what reason exactly? So we could find weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. So Dick Cheney's corporation that he used to work for could make billions of dollars off this country. Like when you think about like it is just
Yeah.
yeah, it's fucking awful. Just the whole thing. Just that it is so sad just thinking about how avoidable all of this should be and that not like but from the perspective of that family, the people in Iraq, but also the soldiers themselves of like these are pretty much they're all like 18-year-old kids that just joined the military because they want to do the right thing. They think you know what I mean, and
Maybe they get
they're
college, you know, like
right, exactly, yeah, yeah, uh, and they're put in these fucking awful situations by absolute scumbag ghoul politicians who never have to. Most of them never have to serve in the military ever in their life, and they, put people's traumatize people, destroy, kill, thousands upon thousands of people for their own gain. It's yeah, it's fucking awful. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know.
And I think this movie again, I think like I think we talked a little bit at the beginning too of like before spoiler section is this movie I think does a pretty good job at like at to me at least being like, hey, the war wasn't necessarily a good thing, obviously, right? Like it shows, and it doesn't really hold your hand. It doesn't really hold back the fact that like they're treating the Iraqi military and this family differently, right? It certainly doesn't hold back the fact that they are destroying this house, right? Just a random house,
Hmm.
right? It's also just like a random battle, right? Like this is not really a battle that people have heard about, right? We know there's like some battles in this time area in this time that are like a little more well known and more destructive, but like if this is one that like nobody's heard about necessarily, right? Like there's probably a lot of this, right?
Yeah,
And so all this stuff like definitely to me with my already kind of Iraq war being bad perspective is like yeah, this is clearly able to show that, but also it is still showing that like the soldiers that were there weren't necessarily they're not the bad people, right? Like
hmm.
the the Navy SEALs that are there because they're trying to help our country and all this stuff, right? And they're just like it's like they are heroic in a way because they're doing or they're because they're helping each other and trying to survive. But like what they're doing is bad, but it's not because of them. It's because they're like forced into that because of our
Yeah,
corrupt government or whatever. Like,
right. Yeah, the movie is that like at the end of the movie there is I forget. Well, they show pictures of people. A lot of them their faces are blurred out. I assume maybe some of their names are changed, maybe because they didn't want to or they couldn't. I don't know.
yeah,
But uh, they show the actors alongside them, and like we said earlier, there's like the footage of them behind the scenes a little bit, which was interesting. But there's also a message at the end. I forget exactly what it said, obviously, but it was like for like in dedication to the soldiers for
mhm,
answering the call. I
yeah,
forget exactly what it says, but it was basically the movie being dedicated to the soldiers. So, and obviously Ray Mendoza was one of the soldiers, and certainly the movie is uh you know empathetic and in favor of them, even if I don't know. I'm also kind of curious. I haven't really heard like Ray Mendoza talk about it
yeah,
necessarily, like what he thinks about it or any of those types of things. I'd be curious to hear him talk about that. But the movie certainly to me didn't make the Iraq War seem like a good thing at all. It made it seem
yeah,
fucking awful and it's like one of the worst thing anyone could ever experience, pretty much. So yeah,
yeah. I mean, again, like when we think about what's going on at the beginning of the movie, it's these SEALs taking a position to support some marine operation that we never see,
yeah.
and then what's happening at the end is they're leaving that position.
Yes, and literally the last shot before we get the behind the scenes stuff is all the Al Qaeda or whatever that group is. They're all of our soldiers leave in the tanks, and the family comes out and is like, "Okay, they're gone. Like they're gone. It's okay." And all of Al Qaeda comes out of their buildings and into the streets, and they're just kind of walking around. And it really shows that okay, we come in, we fucking destroy everything. put soldiers through absolute hell, and then nothing has been accomplished. Like lives have been destroyed and ruined, and people have been traumatized and everything, and people have died, and we haven't done anything. The terrorist group is still in control. They still are here, and nothing has changed. It's just, it shows sort of the futility of that war and trying to invade this country. And yeah, the futility of it, I think, was emphasized in that last shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a very like the whole movie is harrowing in many ways, and the ending's kind of harrowing as a reminder of the the fact that nothing happened, right? Like we went in, left, and at least in this battle and in the whole war, like
Yeah.
nothing changed.
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, it should not, or at least like nothing was accomplished, I guess
Yeah,
you could say.
right,
Right,
right.
right. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? Not that nothing changed, even in this battle, right? Like houses were
yeah,
destroyed, families' lives were ruined, soldiers were horrifically injured and traumatized,
killed.
people died,
Mm.
right? Like, um, yeah,
Yeah, so things change, but nothing like it's nothing good comes out of it at
yeah,
all. Not a single thing. So yeah, I think from my perspective, it certainly shows the war as maybe the Iraq War in particular, but maybe you could extrapolate to war in general.
yeah,
But yeah, especially this battle and this war, it shows the how um, how bad it was to do that and put these soldiers through this horrific experience.
yeah,
So yeah, very. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm just rambling.
yeah. I mean, I think this movie was just so, so incredibly hard to watch, and
Yeah.
it's hard to rate.
Yeah, pretty insane that this is the first movie we've done this where we watched a movie in theaters together and then we're like, hey, we'll watch the movie, we'll record the podcast right after. That'll be fun. Oh, we'll do it for warfare. Yeah.
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 I mean I knew going into this that it was going to be realistic. That was the whole point of the movie from my understanding, but like
Yeah.
I did not I don't think there's any way I could have prepared for what I watched.
No, yeah. I figured it would be like harrowing and difficult to watch, but it was like so immersive and like it was more than I could have expected, I
Yeah.
guess, or maybe more than I've ever seen in another movie in particular,
Yeah.
at least off the top of my head. But yeah, so yeah, it's hard to rate. I don't know. I'd probably yeah, fucking. It seems stupid to rate it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it like 4.5,
Yeah.
maybe 5 stars.
That's where I'm at too. It's like this feels like a masterpiece, but in the way that it's made and everything, but like it's so hard because I don't ever want to sit through that again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's one of those movies that is incredible. It kind of reminds you of The Zone of Interest a little bit from where last year, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. That is like so well made and brilliant and thought provoking about whatever genocide, the Holocaust, to the past and today, all that kind of stuff. And it's an amazing movie, but I'm also like, yeah, I don't know that I ever really want to watch that again. This sort of has a similar thing to me where but yeah, it's an amazing movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, it is crazy though. This is our first one that we did this for, where
Yeah.
we watched the movie and then did it right away.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, maybe we'll do more of these. Maybe we can do this with like a comedy
yeah,
sometime. It might be.
yeah,
But yeah, there's plenty to talk about, and hopefully some people will watch the first half of the episode and maybe know what to expect going in and go in and watch the movie and get something out of it because I do really think it's worth watching if you know what you're getting into and you watch it in the right setting.
yeah,
Don't go for a date night. Don't go. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Pro relationship tips from us.
yeah.
Don't use this as a date night.
Yes. All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Don't forget, I mean, one, if you guys have seen this, please let
Yeah.
us know what you think. I think there's a lot to talk about with this movie. I think we'd love to hear your perspectives.
Yeah, certainly. Especially if anyone is a veteran or has family or anything like that. Like I'd be very curious to hear people's thoughts on the movie.
Yeah. Also, make sure you check us out next week. We're
Yes.
doing we have our Our
Vibe
topic
shift.
was
Crazy vibe shift.
That's right. Totally normal transition here. Our topic for next week we pulled was movies to drink to. So we made some drinking games for The Hangover and Rocky Horror Picture. We'll be watching those. Uh, or we're watching those throughout the week,
Yeah.
and next week we'll be talking about them while we're drinking.
Yeah, we have the drinking games for the movies. We're gonna, it'll be kind of fun. We didn't go too crazy with the
Yeah.
rules. We tried to keep it simple but fun. And yeah, I think we're gonna call it drinking game movies. Is
Yeah.
that gonna be the title? I think that
Yeah.
makes
Kind of
sense.
shorten the original topic.
Yeah, I think yeah, whatever. But yeah, so that'll be a more fun episode. A couple
Yeah.
comedies, a couple.
I'll tell you what I need to drink after this
Oh
movie.
my God, Jesus Christ. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's that. And then after that, we're very excited. We're probably going to be doing Sinners after that. So that is very exciting.
And if you want to stay up to date with all of our stuff, y'all hopefully know where to find us at this point. Letterboxd, Mind Your Movies, go follow us there. We've got links to everything. Our Instagram, our Blue Sky, our
YouTube and podcast links.
everything. So find us there. You can also just see all of our reviews. The small little letterbox reviews.
Yeah.
So keep up with us on there if you want to know what else we're gonna be watching.
Yeah. And please, leave us a comment if you have any thoughts on this movie. It's definitely a thought provoking and conversation starting movie. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone.
See ya.